Okay, we are going to get started so we can be good stewards of everyone's time. Just know that this is live streaming on YouTube. It will be sent out to thousands of people all over, certainly the state of Florida, and who else follows our pages. I certainly wanted to have President Anthony Brown come on, my brother in the struggle here from Indian River County. Always looking for good information, always making sure that his county that he is in charge of has the latest information. And so we want to thank those who've already joined and those who are watching if you're watching us on Zoom or on YouTube, you're certainly welcome. I think the chat should be open. We have the Q&A. Feel free to put questions in as the speakers go along, and then we will get questions at the end. First of all, I want to open up, as we do, with a word of prayer from our Religious Affairs Chair, our own Minister Bridget Edwards. Minister, if you please.
Thank you, Madam President, and to all assembled. Let us go before the throne of grace. Most gracious, eternal God and Father, we thank you for yet another opportunity for your people together. Now, God, your word tells us in all of our getting to get understanding. And I pray, God, on tonight that we would be able to get a better understanding concerning the homestead exemptions and the property taxes. God, we pray for clarity. We pray for understanding. We pray your blessings upon your people in the precious name of our Lord Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Being that it is our August meeting, we do have one bit of business that we have to take care of. We have to set an election date. This is the year of branch elections. And we must vote tonight to vote when to have our branch elections. And we will just do the date and the time. No need for the place because we will use Election Buddy as National will be in charge of it. We've just got to tell them when and what time, and they will take care of all the rest. And look on our channel, we'll give out the other dates of as we go on with the election. But the first order of business is the date and the time of the election. So do I hear a motion?
Sonia Burrows, Madam President, I'd like to move that the NAACP Fort Lauderdale Broward branch hold its 2026 branch election on November 12th, 2026, from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m.
Is there a second?
Stevens, second.
Okay, is there any unreadiness? Please put your hand up if you have a question. Seeing none, all those in favor, let it be known by the sound of aye.
Aye.
Those you're voting, you can put your hand up as
Aye.
well. Is there any opposed? Same sign. Hearing none, the motion carries. Now that is done, let's get to the other business, which is finding out what in the world is going on with this tax bill. I've been looking on next door. People are just, really, really confused and just they are, just got some really bad information. So our job as the NAACP is to make sure that that information is given, that it is clear information. There will be other webinars, but we need to get something out right away. And we wanted to be able to start here. And as I always do, I reached out to Attorney Pamela Birchford, who is our even though she be trying not to be our lawyer for the state conference, she is. She is our lobbyist, our political strategist, our all the things, and certainly a wealth of knowledge and resources. So I reached out to her for help, which is what we needed to do, and she said I'll work on it and let you know, and she did just that. And so with that, I would like you all to welcome I know she aligns us, the minister Bridget, but our Pamela Birchford, who is our person who we lean on, our strategist, and our political advisor, and that she does give it to you straight, and she brings people who are going to give us facts. And so, Pamela, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Madam President. You know how much I enjoy being here with you and your members, and with President Brown and the members he's brought from Indian River County. And being here always gives me an opportunity to showcase all my very smart friends. So I have some of them with me this evening. Joining us to discuss this issue is Jackson Peel, who is the former comms director for the House Democratic Office. He served as the rapid response director for the Kamala Harris for President campaign, and he is currently the comms director for Save Our Services No on 3 campaign. Also with us this evening is Jeff Branch. He is a former analyst with the Florida House Democratic Office, but for the last 20 years or so, he's been at the Florida League of Cities. He serves as the Director of Field Advocacy and Emergency Management, and is also the Executive Director for the Florida League of Mayors. And he would be very upset if I did not announce that he was a proud graduate of Bethune-Cookman University. We also have joining us Erica Lee. Erica previously served as the Equity Operations Manager at the Tampa Bay Healthcare Collaborative. She is currently a public health professional specializing in social, behavioral, and health education sciences with a concentration in health equity. She currently serves as a health policy analyst at the Florida Policy Institute and is also the Tampa Bay chapter chair for Sisters in Public Health. So thank you all for joining us. And you know that each time I'm here, I'm often discussing legislation designed to make our lives more difficult, such as voter suppression laws that silence our voices and steal our Black political power, education reforms that suck funding out of our public schools and deny our children the world-class education they deserve, and laws that totally ignore our civil rights and civil liberties. Regrettably, I'm not bringing any good news this evening. We're here to talk about what could be the most devastating threat designed to destabilize our lives and our communities. This evening, we're going to discuss the ballot initiative and the real impact of the Amendment 3, which relates to property tax reform. This constitutional initiative will provide a tax break for some, but will definitely cause a tax shift that will negatively impact working families, seniors, and our city services. Some of our cities may not even be able to continue as independent cities as we know them today. So let's get started to find out more about what Amendment 3 will actually do. Jackson, let's start off with you. Tell us what is Amendment 3 and what happens if it passes.
Absolutely. Thank you, Pamela, and thank you all for having me here. And as Pamela said, I was for a long time the House Democratic Caucus Communications Director up in Tallahassee. I got to serve two Broward County leaders, Bobby DeBose and Evan Jenny, and in addition to Keone McGee from Miami-Dade, and then Fentress Driscoll, my forever leader from the Tampa area. I do have to correct, though, I was only the Rapid Response Director for Florida, not for the entire campaign. I don't. Thank you for the promotion, but yes, Amendment 3 is a tax scam and a tax shift. This is not going to be what it's advertised as. And I know it's attractive and I know it sounds good, but it is really going to hurt our communities. I want to walk you through what it will do. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And sorry, I'm not as great at the tech as some of the younger folks are. So give me 1 second. There we go. Now everyone can see. Amendment 3 is, a scam and a tax shift that will raise our costs and cut our services. It's important that you all or understand what's going on with this, because it's important that you share with your communities so that we can let everyone know what they're voting on, because the problem is that folks don't understand. So I work for Save Our Services, No on 3. It's a statewide coalition of grassroots organizations. We're the nonprofits, we're the labor unions, we're the kind of the lefty organizations. We're the social justice side of this. Let's talk about what Amendment 3 will actually do. What does the amendment do in effect? It's going to raise our homestead exemption on non-school property taxes from $50,000 to $150 in 2027 and $250 in 2028. And then it's adjusted for inflation starting in 2029. It also creates a pathway for elimination. The legislature will create a pathway for counties to do full elimination of property taxes. So Florida doesn't have an income tax. We have a sales tax and we have property taxes. That's how we fund our state effectively. There are a few other things that do come in too, but those are the two big ones. Your sales taxes go to the state, and the property taxes are how your local communities fund most everything they do. The amendment also has an assessment growth cap, and I know this is technical, an assessment growth cap for non-homesteaded properties. That means that the assessment of their value can only raise 5% instead of the current cap, which is 10% every year. That's going to things like rental properties and commercial properties. That sounds like it's designed to prevent the taxes from being shifted on over to businesses and to renters. It's far more complicated than that, because it only limits the assessment. We're still going to see a large increase if Amendment 3 passes on renters. Renters, if you rent, you're going to pay more, because that's absolutely going to happen, because your community is going to need to find a way to make up some or all of the money somewhere else. And just so everyone knows, this Amendment 3, we all keep saying it, the other side says it, we say sometimes that it's a property tax elimination. It's a non-school property tax elimination. So if your tax bill, let's say your tax bill is $1,000, it's going to be way more than that, but just for simple math, let's say it's $1,000 every year. $400 of that or so is your school property taxes. And those are not going to get touched no matter whether Amendment 3 passes or not. So don't assume you're automatically getting your $1,000 back. You're only going to get that 600, not the full 1,000. You're already going to still be getting a bill. Even if you vote yes and every other Floridian votes yes, you're still going to get a bill for your school side. So I want to talk about the environment that we find ourselves in for this. Floridians are struggling with an affordability crisis. We cannot ignore that. We absolutely cannot. We all know that. We're all feeling it. A tax cut can sound attractive right now when you're in an affordability crisis, but we have to understand the impacts this is going to have on our community. And most people truly don't understand half or a quarter of what their local government does and what their local property taxes pay for. And it's critical that we get the most people that we can to understand what those dollars do, so that they can make an informed decision about this. Because if you walk into a polling place and you're in an affordability crisis and you're struggling every month and you need help, and you see an amendment that says check this yes box and you're going to not have to pay that bill, it's going to be very tempting. We have to make sure that Floridians understand that if you check that yes box, that means that health programs, EMTs, fire rescue, road repair, disaster recovery, a host of things, programs that help seniors, programs that help kids, all of that's going away. Or the alternative there is that they're going to find a way locally. They're going to have, because they can't stop doing all of those things. It would be catastrophic. They're going to find a new way to do it. So they're going to charge new taxes and new fees somewhere else. So the guy with $20 million mansion, he's getting a great deal. He's not going to pay that big bill that he pays right now. But everybody's going to be paying a $5 fee for their kids to go play in the park. Everybody's going to get a fire rescue assessment fee on their utility bill or something like that. We're all going to be paying more elsewhere. Polling shows that this is close to the margin where it needs to be, or just beyond the margin. It requires a 60%. We're not at 50% plus one like a normal election for governor or a senator or something like that. This is a constitutional amendment. It requires a 60% threshold. So we don't have to get 50% of Floridians to agree with us. We have to get 40% plus one. That makes it a bit easier. Right now, there are two organizations organized to oppose Amendment 3. That's Save Our Services, which is us, and Stop Unfair Tax Shifts. That's the organization Jeff is mostly working with. We are explicitly aimed very clearly at Democratic voters and left of center NPAs. Now, that our language is very intentionally not exclusionary, so that if a Republican sees this language, they don't see something that turns them off. But we are specifically trying to talk to those communities because we find that our theory of the case is that that's who we need to move to get as low as possible, lowest support possible to stop this amendment. There's currently no organized yes campaign. There's not a group for yes. The governor has spoken positively about it, but he has also said he's not going to fundraise for it. That's creating an interesting situation here where there's daily stories about someone else coming out against it, some other city, some other county saying this is what it's going to happen, this is what's going to do this. Librarians, city planners, firefighters, police, sheriffs, all of these people are opposed. And when they try to find someone who's for it, I got a bunch of people in my Twitter replies, but I'm not sure they even live in Florida. And we've got the governor who is supportive generally, but this isn't his plan. His plan had some other things in it, and the legislature didn't pass it. The legislative leadership is not pushing for this. They'll generally say, we hope they vote for it, but they're not campaigning for it, and they're leaving it in the hands of Floridians because they know this isn't the best idea. They know this isn't a great idea, and they don't want to get any of this on them. They want to be as far away as possible when this really devastates our communities in a couple of years if it passes. So what are we looking at here? What will happen? We're talking about widespread, very bad cuts to all of the programs across our state. So we're looking at local impacts of $46 billion in local programs within 5 years. Now, that's a large number. That's almost too big a number to really get your head around. But remember, every county, every city has a different rate. They have a different set of programs. Some cities do a lot of things for summer camps for kids in their community, so that parents don't have to make a decision between expensive healthcare and going to work. They can send them to a lower cost summer camp. Some communities do a lot with seniors. Some do a lot with veterans. Some do a lot with road maintenance. Others don't have to do as much with road maintenance. So every community spends their money differently. We're going to talk more specifics about Broward County a little bit later. So what we're going to see is that, as I said earlier, for renters, they're going to have to make up this money somewhere. We're going to see this tax shift onto non-homesteaded properties. That means rentals. That means small businesses. Small businesses, your rent's going to go up. Your taxes are going to go up. Your landlord's taxes are going to go up if you don't own the building. And that's going to get passed on to you. And that means if you're a customer of those businesses, that cost is going to get passed on to you as well. So this is going to raise the cost of the cup of coffee down the street, the meal in the diner, the shirt you're buying at a store. We're going to see that happen over and over again. In addition to, they're going to invent new ways to tax us to try and make up this money because it's going to be so monumentally huge. We're going to see assessments and fees we've never seen before, or we're going to see, the only other alternative is that maybe your trash only gets picked up every other week. Your potholes go longer without being filled. There's fewer folks working the 911 center when you call, when you or your family, God forbid, have an accident or an illness. That's unacceptable to communities. They're going to have to raise this money somehow, and that is going to get passed on to us. That's why this is a tax shift, because while we stop paying this bill, we're going to pay a whole bunch of other little bills that equal it or more. Because remember, the $20 million mansion guy, he'd love to just pay a little bill here and a little bill there to make up that money, because that means that most of the burden is on you and I and not him. And this is a constitutional amendment. It's almost impossible to reverse. It's going to be really, really, really hard to fix this problem if we create it. And there is no plan to pay for the basic needs of our communities. The governor's plan that he was originally proposing, I wasn't a fan of it, but it at least had some plans for some of the rural communities. They weren't good plans, but at least they had some. This has nothing. This has no plan to pay for things. The governor is saying things like, oh, we'll call people back for a special session. We'll do something. We just keep pretending that he's going to be governor forever, I guess. I don't know. Like he's not really going to be able to solve all of these problems. He's not governor after January when the new governor is sworn in. He's barely the governor between November as the transition happens. He's not going to have the pull and the sway to pull all of this off. So we need to be very careful with promises like that really can't be kept. So what are we at risk of losing? We kind of talked a little bit about this before, but we're talking healthcare services, hospital services. Florida Policy Institute just today put out a press release, a study about what the different hospital services are going to lose. There's going to be some stunning information for you for Broward County later on from Erica. Public safety, fire rescue, EMTs. EMTs are ambulances. So when you get sick, when you have a crash, fire rescue, 911 operators. We're talking about disaster recovery. When a hurricane hits us, The first dollars that go to getting the trees off the road, that go to getting the linemen going to restore power, to do all of the things, all the money that jumpstarts everything is your local property taxes that then gets reimbursed by FEMA later on. Which, by the way, the Trump administration wants to, squash down how much they send down. So we're going to get squashed. Florida's going to get squashed both ways. FEMA sending us less federal money and absolutely gutting away their ability from our property taxes to fund that first stage of disaster recovery. Disaster prevention programs for water management stuff that prevent floodwaters. All the money for those things is going away. Summer camps for kids, programs for seniors, programs for veterans we talked about. Parks, libraries, all of that. The libraries are going to cut back their hours. The parks are going to, go without maintenance, go without, improvements. Lights are going to go out. They're going to become less safe. They're going to become less taken care of. That's what's going to happen to our community in general. Our community is going to be less taken care of and less vibrant and less thriving. And we're going to, if you want your property taxes to go down, hey, just let our property values go down because our communities have completely failed because we cut off all our ability to pay for anything. Also, things like your supervisor of elections, your clerk of courts, your those offices, those are constitutional offices that are paid for by a lot by those taxes dollars. So you're going to have a pretty big election coming up in November, and then again in 2028, a really big one. And you're accustomed to going to your polling place. You're accustomed to a certain efficiency from your election experience. That might not happen if your supervisor of elections can't afford to fund as many polling locations. So you're going to have to drive further, go to a different polling location, probably wait in a longer line because all of your neighbors are doing the same thing, all going to one consolidated place. It's going to be very inefficient and very, very difficult. And that's just some of the unintended consequences that people aren't thinking of. And the clear, easy ones are fire and police. That's the one that they make a lot of talk about how that's being protected and that's being defended. Not really. Not really. You're saying that you're requiring those pieces to get, to get their pieces of the pie, but you're also saying that the pie is now 1/3 of its size. So at a certain point, as costs keep going up, as it becomes more and more expensive, when we need a new fire truck, when we need new officers because we've grown, there's not enough pie to go around. They aren't really protecting public safety later on. And that's why the police, firefighters, and sheriffs have all spoken out and said this is a risk to public safety. I have no idea why that isn't the end of this conversation, but it isn't. And then finally, for now, I want to talk about the impacted communities. Who is this really going to hurt? And really, it's all of us. It truly is. But to start with, it's renters. There's 3 million renting households in Florida with millions of renters across the state. Their rent's going up. That means that the American dream of home ownership is going to get harder for them because they're going to be paying more and more and more of their monthly check in rent. And it's Florida. They're already paying a huge amount. You're in Broward County. Anybody that rents down there, God love you. I have no idea how you manage it. It's so expensive down there. I had to live in Orlando for the presidential campaign, and that basically wiped most of my check out. Working families and seniors, because this tax shift is not going to go on to the rich guy with a $20 million mansion. It's not going to go onto the corporations. It's going to go on to us. It's going to go on to working families and seniors. We're going to be paying more. We're going to be making up the money so that we can hopefully scrape by and keep close to the same level of services that we already rely on. This is going to hurt kids because there's so many programs that our communities pay for that help kids. And those programs are going to go away. They're going to get cut. They're going to go, they're not going to be able to hold them up. We wish we could, but we're not going to have the money. It's not going to be there because voters across the state have decided that your community isn't allowed to collect your tax dollars and spend it on your kids the way you want to. Let that sink for a second. This is also going to be really tough on communities of color and immigrant communities who tend to require a lot of the services that are necessary that these programs pay for to help them succeed, to help them get a leg up, to help them thrive in our communities. And this is going to be very bad for public sector workers. Now, that's not a winning political message, but those are thousands and thousands of families across the state who they're going to lose their jobs. That's going to impact those families. It's going to impact the economy of their neighborhoods. That's going to put people out of work who have been spending their lives basically taking care of us, because that's what public sector workers really do. They take care of the rest of the community, and those folks are going to lose their jobs because there's just not going to be enough money to pay for them. And this is going to hurt. Basically, my joke is it's basically anybody that isn't in a $20 million mansion. If you're everybody on this call with a $20 million mansion, vote for Amendment 3 because it's great for you. Everybody else, this is bad for you. It is a tax scam and a tax shift That is not going to help us. It's going to cut our services. It's going to raise our costs, and it's really bad for Florida. And I think later on, I'm going to talk about some of the messaging we have for it. But I think now it's time for, I believe Jeff is going to tell us a few things about local impacts.
Thank you so much, Jackson. And I'm going to share my screen. Jackson, you have to unshare your screen.
Yep.
There you go.
Sorry, I lost the button. Sorry about
That's
that.
okay. I have to send a request because it's not shareable right
You should be good now.
now. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm Jeff Branch with the Florida League of Cities. We always have a disclaimer. We're a nonpartisan organization, and we're strictly about the data and the facts. Thanks again for having me here. As Jackson mentioned, I want to talk about property tax as well from a local government vantage, but not just taxes alone. I want to talk about our communities. When we hear the words property tax, we tend to think about the bill that comes in the mail. But the bill is connected to something that's much bigger than the paper that it is printed on. It helps to determine whether there's a police officer available when you call 911, whether firefighters have the equipment that they need, whether streets are maintained, whether parks stay open, and whether communities have the resources to respond when a natural disaster hit. So as we talk about this proposed constitutional amendment, the question I want us to keep in mind that keeps coming back to is, what does this actually mean for the people who live in our communities? Before we get into the amendment, just want to quickly explain our Florida local government structure. Our great state has 411 cities. The League of Cities represents all 411 cities, towns, and villages. We have 67 counties, 67 school districts, and over 2,000 special districts. But the statement that's at the bottom of the slide, where it says cities are the only optional layer, you have no choice but to live in the county. You have no choice but to live in the school district, and you have no choice but to live in the special district. But you do have a choice of what city that you decide to live in. People choose cities. People created cities because they wanted local control. They wanted the decisions about their neighborhoods to be made closer to home. And this is especially important for this conversation. When you weaken a city's ability to raise revenue locally, you're not simply changing the tax structure, you're changing how much control a community has over its own future. So how is your city funded? Sometimes people think that cities get all this money coming from Tallahassee. They do not. I wish they did. Cities essentially have two big buckets of money. They have restricted revenue, money that can only be used for certain purposes, like the gas tax can only be used for roads, and unrestricted revenue sources that help pay for everyday services. And you can see from the screen that property taxes is highlighted. That's one of the most important sources of unrestricted revenue. So if you dramatically reduce property taxes, a city cannot simply just reach into another bucket and pull out the same amount of money. Eventually, choices have to be made. Here's another misconception that I want you to clear up, that I want to clear up. When someone gets their property tax bill, they think that all that money goes straight into City Hall, and it does not. Statewide, for every property tax dollar, a local government, municipality, or city gets just shy of 16 cents. Counties receive just about 35 cents, and school district receives about 38 cents on a dollar. So when someone says my property taxes are too high, it's a legitimate conversation. But we also need to understand who is actually receiving the money before we decide to make cuts. And again, no one wants to pay for property taxes, but we do appreciate the services that we receive every day that local governments provide. So this is where the conversation becomes real. And as Jackson mentioned, property taxes help pay for essentials: police, fire, roads, and infrastructure. 56% of the general fund spending from city goes towards public safety. Now, granted, if we cut property taxes and you have an emergency, you don't want Jeff Rent showing up. All I can do is just pray for you. You want those who are the expertise in the emergency that you have called. Even more striking, there are at least 176 Florida cities spending on public safety exceeds all the property taxes that the cities collect. I'll put it in plain English. I live in Tallahassee. We collect just shy of $40 million in property taxes. But the city of Tallahassee public safety budget is $50 million. And that's just not just Tallahassee, but there's other cities throughout the state that the collection of their property taxes doesn't pay for their public safety. These are the communities where it takes every dollar of property tax and revenue is put towards public safety. So when someone dramatically says, let's reduce property taxes and simply tells local government to cut the waste, we need to ask the very basic question, where exactly do you want to cut? Because eventually we're talking about people and we're talking about services. So what's being proposed? And there's a lot in this amendment. I've given over 100 presentations and I believe I'm still not an expert and I'm inside the boat. For the average citizen, they really don't understand how technical property tax is. So I'll just talk about two things regarding this amendment. This proposal will increase the property tax exemption from $50,000 to $150,000 beginning the first year, 2027, and then increases it to $250,000 in 2028. What does that mean? When you look at your home, you have an assessed value, how much your home is worth. Then you have a taxable value, and that is all the exemptions that you are given. And then what's left is what you actually pay. So if your house is assessed at $500,000 and you have a bunch of exemptions at the end of your tax bill, your taxable exemption, your taxable of your property is $250,000. Well, in year 2028, you'll pay zero in homestead property tax. You'll still pay taxes on, for schools, village. But if your house taxable value was $300,000, it means that you'll pay about $50,000 in property taxes, which means, as Jackson mentioned, it may be a tax cut to you, but it's a tax shift to the rest of us. And that's not right. Because guess what? The cost of a police officer doesn't change. The cost of a firefighter doesn't change. The cost of a fire truck doesn't change. And so reducing the revenue does not eliminate the expense. So this is where I encourage everyone to look beyond the headlines, because property tax relief sounds good. And again, none of us want to pay property taxes, but we appreciate the services that our local governments provide. We all have cell phones, and I think my cell phone costs about $1,400. And eventually I will pay off this cell phone. But when I'm on a road trip with my kids and I want to have a smooth road trip, I give them my cell phone because there are services that my cell phone provides that I have to pay monthly. I'll never fully pay for the cell phone because I have to pay for the services. I have to pay for the online streaming and the games. And I do that so I can have a smooth, long trip vacation ride with my kids. If not, somebody's getting kicked out of the car. So again, as Jackson mentioned, it's not a tax cut, it's a tax shift. And who will be holding the bill at the end of the day? Renters, right? Anyone who owns a second home, property tax will go up. That homeowner is not going to absorb the increased cost of that tax bill. They will pass it on to the renter. And we're already at a crux in our country where affordability is an issue. And so renters are barely holding on. Can you imagine if their rents go up $600 or $700? That means that we have that means now we're going to have a public safety issue because you'll have an increase in homelessness. First-time home buyers. We all dreamed about buying our first house if you have one. Well, they don't benefit from this tax exemption until the 5th year. So what is the incentives for first-time home buyers to purchase a house if they can't get that tax break. So it's unfair. And obviously, our local businesses. Now we're on this Zoom call with the NAACP, which is a nonprofit organization, and there's other nonprofit organizations out there and churches. And right now they pay no property taxes, or if they do, little to any. Under this proposed constitution, they'll pay no property tax, but they'll pay an assessment. And if churches start paying a fire assessment, that means it's less of a partnerships that they do with the community. They're not helping to prevent homelessness. They're not helping to provide supplies for schools or helping their parishioners with medical bills, because now that money is diverted from the community to help to paying for the fire assessment fee as a result. That means any nonprofit that receives grants from cities, that diminishes. Any vendors that are partnering with cities for cybersecurity, that means we go from the Cadillac partnership to maybe the Hoopty partnership. And so everyone will feel the impact of this tax shift. Now, on this particular side, as we talk about hurricanes, as you know, when a hurricane hits the state or when it's approaching, local governments have to act fast. We can't wait for Tallahassee, and we can't wait for our federal government. Some of the expenses and some of the things that go into place to plan and prepare for a hurricane and the rapid response, we tend to use some of the property tax to sort of help families, whether it is providing water, whether it is providing for storm shelters. That comes from local government. That comes from the pot of the money of property taxes, because the state government and the federal government tend to come on the back end. If property taxes go away, then how will communities recover? Because we won't have that strong and stable local revenue that we have now to help ensure that our residents are getting back to their homes. So bottom line is, as Jackson mentioned, it's not a tax cut, it's a tax shift. It doesn't protect public safety, it defunds it, and it doesn't empower communities. It requires us to come up to the state and to beg for money. This QR code here is to our website, flocities.com. We have a property tax toolkit, and we have data on there that shows you over 200 cities what the impacts will be. We also have on this in this toolkit resources of how do you talk to residents, how you talk to the chamber, and how do you talk to business about the impacts on this. And with that, I believe I will hand it over to Erica.
Hi, thank you for that. I actually don't have any slides tonight. What I'm going to do is actually drop in the chat for y'all the report that I just published over here at Florida Policy Institute. So we are a nonpartisan research think tank, and we really focus on policy that is advancing policy that's going to benefit the quality of life for all Floridians, no matter where they come from. So our mission is the same as a lot of y'all here on this call. Now, this conversation has been really robust so far, and we've talked a lot about numbers. Interestingly enough, I was able to calculate how this amendment would impact Florida's public hospitals. Many people are unaware that some of their property taxes go towards funding certain public hospitals and taxing entities in those counties. Now, this is interesting because it's not every county in the state of Florida, and it's not every special district that was mentioned earlier on this call. Florida has about 28 special districts, special healthcare districts that have the ability to levy some form of taxes. And of those, about 11 or 12 of them are levying ad valorem property taxes to fund care in their counties. Now, the care that comes from these public hospitals also is specifically for individuals who are underinsured or uninsured. So this is care for the indigent that we talk about across these counties. So this report broadly found that about $323 million is going to be cut from Florida's public hospital systems. And what's also really interesting is that when you look at each hospital taxing district, they all function differently based off of what county they are in. Each one has its own founding statutes, and so they operate and function and fund different things. Some of them are responsible for funding various community programs, HIV outreach, and behavioral health care. Some of these hospital taxing districts are located in counties that only have uh, one Medicaid dental provider, when we know that dental access is already a huge issue in the state of Florida. Furthermore, there's one of these hospital districts that is in a county that actually does not have an OBGYN, so it's already unsafe to give birth in this county. And when I say these things, it's very hard to believe, but the interesting part about learning all about this and doing this analysis was actually going to talk to some of the representatives of these hospital districts who said, yes, if we lose these funds, we are going to lose the ability we have to invest in the programs that our hospital actually invests in the community. Because we are a public hospital, we provide services that other hospitals simply will not. When you look at a district such as Jackson Memorial Health System down in Miami-Dade, they're interestingly funded through their county on a both ad valorem property tax and non-property tax, but that's called a public health trust. And these funds are also going to provide the only care that incarcerated individuals can get in that county specifically. Now, because you all are in Broward, I would love to chat with you about that. Broward County actually has two hospital districts. You have your North Broward Hospital District and your South Broward Hospital District. And together, when you look at this impact, y'all are going to lose about $102.5 million over the next 3 years with the implementation of Amendment 3. Now, specifically broken down, that's the North Broward Hospital District losing about $100 million of those funds, and the South Broward Hospital District losing about $2.2 million of those funds. And this is really important to know. I mean, the North Broward Hospital District has over 25 facilities. It has over 723 beds. It sees over 35,000 people in 1 year. And again, this hospital also supports community programs. It funds some Healthy Start programs. It has supporting and nursing care in the community and more. And so this is going to be difficult to contend with. It is a large amount of money that will be lost. Um, it's looking about 40% of that hospital's total property tax revenue. When you look at the overall budget, some people will say, you know, we still have a $2 billion budget from this hospital. However, a loss of $100 million is still significant when it comes to that reinvestment that's going to happen and that shift that's going to happen to continue, that's going to happen to continue happen in order to continue funding those programs that the North Broward Hospital District funds. And similarly, you have your South Broward Hospital District, its Memorial Healthcare System. And it has a cardiovascular institute, a Memorial Cancer Institute, and that treats more inpatients than any in Broward County. And so all of these things are really important to know. And unfortunately, people are highly unaware that some of their property taxes go towards funding public hospitals in Florida. If you're interested and want to read more details of the report, I go into Baker County. We talk about Indian River County and Lake County, Palm Beach County. Volusia County has 3 hospital taxing districts. And then we have Sarasota and Columbia County. And the report also talks about the very specific consequences for each of those taxing districts and some public hospitals throughout the state. And if you read the report and have any questions about that, you can always email me. I'm happy to talk about this topic. I don't think this is something that a lot of people are aware of.
Thanks so much, Erica. I don't think people ever think about hospital care and health delivery when you think about property taxes. But this is definitely could be devastating to our communities because so many people depend on charity care from their hospitals. So let's move back to Jackson so we can talk about messaging. How do we talk to our neighbors and our friends and families to get them to really understand the devastation that passing this amendment could bring? Give us some tips, and then let us know, do we have the ability to really stop this amendment from passing?
Great question. And I haven't done nearly as many of these as Jeff, but I've done a lot, and I would like to take Jeff and Erica for all of my future presentations because it really helps to hear from the different voices and the different experts. I'm a guy that can talk a lot and talk fast, but that they're bringing some expertise that's really, really critical for people to understand what's going on here. Yeah, here's a slide that kind of shows a little bit of what Erica was talking about, by the way. That's $100 million out of the North Broward and 2 million out of the South Broward health districts. I mean, that just to put a point on what she was talking about. I mean, that's babies being born. That's folks getting emergency medical care. That's folks without insurance getting the help they need so they can get healthy quicker. The longer that when folks that don't have health care, they delay going to the doctor, they delay recovery, they get worse outcomes. And that's always just, in a worst case scenario, you're literally talking about people living and dying. And if you want to make it a callous argument, you can say they're going to stay out of work longer, and that hurts our economy and that hurts their family's economy. There's just a million reasons here. And then also the Prison Service Council does a lot of great work, and it's really, really, really overwhelmingly funded by property taxes. So yeah, let's talk about our path to victory. We need to educate voters in Florida so that the no vote exceeds 40%. We only have to exceed 40%. That is a very doable goal. But as I talked about earlier with the economic environment and how people don't understand, it will require quite a bit of work. Our theory of the case from Save Our Services is base consolidation. If we can get Democratic and democratically aligned voters to really understand what's going on here, because some of the polling shows that they are more receptive to the messaging. If you're a Republican voter, your Republican ideology means that a tax cut it will kind of trump a lot of other things. And also, if Republican voters feel that this is a DeSantis project, they have a lot of loyalty and support for him. So it's harder to get them to move off the message. We want to keep trying. We want folks who are talking to them to keep trying. Our messaging is intentionally not designed to turn them off. We don't blame DeSantis. We don't make this partisan, as we're going to get into. But we believe that talking to Democrats and our NPA allies is the best path to get this down to below 40 or to 40% plus one for us to the no vote. And we found that education equals opposition. The polling shows that, our conversations show that, focus groups show that, everything shows that. People will come in and say, hey, do you want to check this box and lose your property tax bill? Absolutely. Okay, now give me 5 minutes to explain to you what you're losing. And whoa, hang on. I didn't realize. I didn't know that was going to make my community less safe, my community less whole. My roads are going to be worse, garbage pickup, police, fire, children's service council, everything that they care about is going to go away. And they find that they don't support it as much then. Forgive me for this being a very hard to read graphic, but it's some polling from back in June that showed the percentage of folks who without a message and then with a message of how much they changed. Republicans stayed the same between messaging and no messaging on it. When you explained to voters, what they were going to lose out on it, Democrats dropped 8 points and NPAs dropped 5. And so for a total of all voters dropping 4 points. By this one, even with Republicans not moving a bit, this poll went from 62 to 58%. That's the margin. That's a victory. That is, if people know what this is, it fails. And if they don't, it passes. This was a poll in July from UNF. Not much easier to read. Shows the Democrats dropped 16% when presented with the information. In this case, the information was the communities. I believe they were using the roughly 12 billion out of our communities in 2 years across the state. That dropped 16 points for Democrats, 20 points for NPAs, and 12 points for Republicans. This probably is indicative of a ton of news stories that were showing problems here, and people were becoming a little bit more educated and were a little bit more willing to to listen to some arguments about why they shouldn't vote for this. But this shows again the voters, but that we cannot ignore, or nor should we ignore, Republican voters. Messages that motivate. This is some tested messaging that we have done that appeals broadly and moves the most voters to no. We're going to talk about some situational things. The renter point, if you want to talk about renters in a community with a heavy rental population, that is an excellent talking point. If you talk about how this is going to hurt renters in, say, the villages where no one rents and everyone owns, it's a failure. They're going to go, great, I love that. Let's put this on the renters. So we have to tailor our message to the audience, but we want to talk about some messaging that works for everyone. When we're talking in general, please keep in mind, we want to focus on the impacts to real people in our communities if these services are cut. This cannot be an abstract budget argument. That budget argument needs to come down to the real things that your communities are losing. We do want to acknowledge that people are in an affordability crisis and need relief, but we've got to say Amendment 3 is not the answer. This is not the answer. Every community should have that conversation every year. What are we paying taxes for? What is that money going to? Is that something we want to do? We should have that conversation every year. People would love to pay less taxes. I would love to pay less taxes. I just don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater and hurt my community with it. I just want it to be done right and better, and this isn't it. We do want to say that property taxes pay for local hospitals, EMTs, fire rescue, disaster preparedness and recovery, programs that help kids, seniors, and veterans, things like that. That's all stuff that motivates. And that list, by the way, and I've kind of read it in that order every time, that's the order in which it is most effective. Local healthcare, hospitals, healthcare services, that is the most motivating thing, followed by some of the safety stuff with EMTs, fire rescue, and the disaster recovery. Those are the things that move the most people. You're going to find individual audiences. You might be in an audience where you know for sure the libraries is the right thing to say. Say it to them. Say it to them. But generally speaking, broadest sense, the healthcare and the public safety are the most motivating tools we have here. And it is important to say that the sheriffs, the police, and the firefighters have all warned that Amendment 3 is going to make Florida less safe. It is a threat to public safety. Say it over and over and over again, because it's true. It's what they've said. It's what's going to happen. And it's a thing that people need to hear and know. I make the joke, that I've never been in a political alliance with Sheriff Grady Judd from Polk County. It's a weird feeling, but he is 100% against this thing because it's going to make Polk County less safe. And he's dedicated to protecting Polk County. I want to stop this amendment because it's going to be bad for Florida. So this is not a partisan issue. Republicans and Democrats across the political spectrum, Republican politicians, Democratic politicians, there's a lot of folks that say this is a bad idea. Things to not say. Don't blame DeSantis or make it partisan. That's not a winning message in Florida. That's also missing the point. That's also, we've got Republican allies in this, and we will make it harder for them to be voices in their community if we make this partisan. We don't want to focus on funding cuts to government. That's not a motivating message, especially for folks in an affordability crisis. Government is a thing that most people just don't particularly like. Even if they kind of still want it funded, it's not as motivating. Don't say funding cuts to the government. Say funding cuts to programs that help our community. You want to focus it back on the community. Like I said before, focus on real impacts to the people in the communities and the services that they're going to be cut. Don't ignore or dismiss the financial pain Floridians are in right now. It's real. It's a struggle. The current federal administration has not made things easy on us. Grocery prices are going up. Inflation is up. We need to be mindful of that. People are really struggling. We don't need to ignore that. And don't expect people to know what their local governments do or what their property taxes fund. We need to educate them to that. That's what we all need to be doing. We need to be talking to our folks and telling them that. So forgive me, the next few slides are going to be very wordy, but I want you to kind of take away the core of it if you're not trying to memorize every bit of this. This is message on real affordability relief. Hardworking families and seniors need real affordability relief, not a scam that cuts essential local services. There will be an amendment on the ballot this November to eliminate property taxes. This is a massive tax break for the wealthy, not for us. The bigger the property, the bigger the tax break, shifting cost onto working families and seniors who will have to pay new fees and higher taxes or lose essential services when they need them the most. Vote no on Amendment 3 to stop this scam and tax shift that will raise our costs and cut our services. That's the best message overall. That's the message test that moved the most people across the political spectrum, across all demographics, across every measure. This is the message that moved the most. It acknowledges there's an affordability crisis. It says we need relief, but this is a scam. Every time I say scam in a news interview, that's generally the clip that gets used. That's a powerful message that cuts through. This is a scam and a tax shift. If you say nothing else to your friends and neighbors about it, it's a scam and a tax shift, and we're going to pay more. So a lot of what DeSantis and other folks have talked about when they originally were pitching the idea of property tax reform is about corruption and unspent and inappropriate spending. They have not particularly proven that there's a lot of corrupt spending, but everyone kind of knows that government could be more effective. And we don't want to ignore people's feelings about that. We can all agree that we need to root out corruption, but eliminating property taxes is not the answer. There'll be an amendment on the ballot this November to eliminate property taxes in Florida. This amendment is the real corruption. It hands massive tax breaks to the wealthy, shifting costs onto the rest of us. We don't want to ignore the fact that people are upset at their government, that people do think the government maybe could be run better. We believe that too. That's true. Yes, we should. But this isn't the answer. That's the key. If you just dismiss them out of hand and say, no, government's fine, give it all the money. No, that's not a winning message with folks. We have to say, yes, we all want to pay less, but we want to pay less smarter. We don't want to lose more than we're gaining. Essential public services will be cut and handed over to private corporations that can jack up fees. Vote no on Amendment 3 to stop this scam and tax shift that will raise our costs and cut our services. You really could be looking at that. We really could be looking at cities and counties that look at things and go, you know what, we just can't pay this garbage pickup service anymore. But if the whole county pays this one company, they can do it. Well, that might be, the decision that county has to make. But how much is that? Is it going to get more and more and more expensive? We all have seen those things with those vendors. Things can get out of hand. They can start paying a lot more. People end up losing out on that. We're going to go quickly through this one. Fees. This is also a strong message. The fact that we're going to be paying new fees. Basically, this is not a real savings. This is not a real tax cut. You're going to be paying fees and taxes elsewhere. That's really the key takeaway with this one. You're going to be paying higher costs because this is a tax shift. Some of the supporting messages, like I talked about, these are particularly good with certain crowds and not with others. Like I said, in the villages, renters isn't a winning message because there's a very high homeownership population. In other places, Orlando area, Broward, Palm Beach, higher renter population, it might be more resonant. Renters need to pay attention. There's an amendment on the ballot this November to eliminate property taxes for homeowners. This does not eliminate property taxes for rental property. In truth, this is going to mean everyone agrees that one of the first places that people are going to go when they need to raise revenue is to the non-homestead property, which means renters means small businesses, like we discussed earlier. Not only will renters miss out on the tax cut, they'll end up likely paying more as a result when landlords pass along their high property tax costs by jacking up the rents, putting homeownership further out of reach. This is going to cost renters more. And then the small business argument is basically kind of the same thing. This is going to hurt small businesses that are already struggling during an affordability crisis because the taxes on that property that they either own or rent from is going to go up, and that's going to get passed on to them, and then that's going to get passed on to consumers. The small businesses are either going to have to raise the cost of that cup of coffee, or they're going to have to absorb that fee, and a lot of them can't. It's going to cut the margins even more, or the costs are going to go up. Both of those hurt the business. Less people are going to buy, product when the cost goes up, and we just know that's going to hurt those small businesses, and that's not what's going to help Florida. Because this is a tax shift, and the $20 million mansion guy has now got a huge tax break, but the small local business, the renter, the family that goes to the park every weekend, they're all paying the price. And local freedom. This is be careful with this message. Some folks don't care as much about this. This is a little bit more, political nerd nuancy, but it does resonate with some folks. This is the Tallahassee takeover. This is Tallahassee politicians deciding they're going to have more and more and more control over what your local government does, what your local community can and can't do. This is Tallahassee saying, okay, yes, we're gonna give you money for that, but not for this. Hey, we don't really like your mayor. Your mayor is a little lippy, little loud. He doesn't particularly like our governor, so we're not going to give you the money you need for that program. That's what could be happening here. That could be what we end up doing. We don't need Tallahassee telling us how we can spend our own local dollars that we currently collect and pay to support programs now. We're fine without Tallahassee coming in here. So the core message here, if you take nothing else away, I know there's a lot of words on a screen, I apologize. Vote no on Amendment 3 to stop this scam and tax shift. It is a scam and a tax shift that will raise our costs and cut our services. This will raise our costs and cut our services. It's really key to keep that in mind. If you tell your friends and neighbors one thing, tell them this sentence. They tell them to vote no on Amendment 3 because this is a scam and a tax shift that will raise our costs and cut our services. I'm saying the jobs, Rick Scott thing because it was effective. That's how that worked. I apologize. The sun went down on me. I now realize I've been kind of giving you this last half of the message in the dark. Just to bring up a couple of things that especially Jeff mentioned city consolidation. We saw Palm Beach County said today, the administrator said that some cities are going to go. I'm originally from a small town in the Panhandle. My county could go away. My home county could go away. You'll see some of these places where they're not going to be able to fund anything anymore. Washington County is going to become part of Bay County. That's a million miles from you guys culturally and physically, but just know that this is really gonna, has the potential to reshape Florida in really bad ways. This is going to make Florida a less desirable place to come, less desirable place to bring your family, less desirable place to raise your family. It's gonna gut everything. Every community decides their property taxes. Tallahassee, they did this because they're mad that local communities, they say, are charging too much for property taxes. And maybe communities are being charged too much for property taxes. But here's the thing. Your local officials decide your property tax rates. If you're uncomfortable with them, elect people who will change it. Every community should have the conversation every year. What are we spending our money on? Can we do it better? Have that conversation. If you're not paying property taxes the way you want to, if you want to pay less, if you want to fund different things, elect different local officials to do just that. You can do this. Amendment 3 does not remove a roadblock. Any community in Florida could right now just gut their property taxes and decide to pay less. Not a single one has. Not the most liberal enclave, not the most conservative enclave. 0 communities have done that because it is incredibly devastating to the communities, and they know that. When you bring it to a community level, when you talk about the things you're going to lose on the street, in the community, in your neighborhood, it is devastating. People don't want to do that. When you make it this big picture, ooh, government's scary and it's spending too much of your money, they're hoping to get people to get scared of that and be, oh, I'm mad, I'm going to vote no. I'm going to vote yes. That it's a trick. Your community could do this now, and they never have because they know it will devastate the communities. That's why no community's done it. And so it's really critical that we all go out, we talk to everyone we can. We need to make sure, because everyone knows who's running for Congress, everyone who's running for Senate. We all love Angie, but we're not gonna, we've got to tell people about this one. They're not going to go to a quick website and say, okay, this is the Republican, this is the Democrat, I know who I'm voting for. This one's more complicated. We have to talk to people and explain to them. There's a lot of Democrats who would love to pay less property taxes, and they're going to vote yes unless we talk to them. We all have to go out and do our part to speak to everyone, to let them know what's at stake here, because if we don't, it's going to be really hard to come back from this. It's going to be really hard to fix our communities. It's going to be really hard to get back to Florida that we have now, when we're all trying to push for an even better Florida. And with that, I'd love to answer any questions, and just please take some of this energy, go out, talk to as many people as you can about this. Make sure they know, because people just don't understand. They don't know. And if we don't tell them, they're not going to. They're going to walk into the polling booth on election day and they're going to click yes because they think, hey, great, I don't have to pay that bill. And they're not going to realize what's going to happen until year 1, 2, 3 later. And they go, wait, why is my community struggling? Where did that go? Where did that thing go? And it went away on Amendment 3. I'm going to wrap that up now, or I will just keep talking forever, and I'm in the dark, apparently.
We appreciate it, Jackson. But there you have it from these experts who I know laid out for you the devastating impact of Amendment 3. I think we got a real clear feel for the fact that it is going to touch all of us. And so I hope that you take this information with you. There's information in the chat. I believe all of the presenters have placed their email addresses, the websites that they are focused on in the chat for you. Erica's dynamic report on hospital and healthcare and how they'll be impacted by this is in the chat. And there are toolkits with both of the organizations that are focused on No on 3. So I do hope that you will capture some of this information, because we're going to be depending on you to talk to your friends and talk to your family about the impact that Amendment 3 is going to have. And with that, I am going to turn it back over to President Ellison.
Thank you so much. There is a question that I see, and it says, how will this impact the Lauderdale Memorial Cemetery, because we haven't talked about cemeteries. It is not privatized. It is owned by the city of Fort Lauderdale, I believe. And they said they have other locations that are more affordable for grieving families. I wanted to confirm that this can have an impact on that as well.
President Ellison, I'll take that question. Every service that a city provides will be impacted from how many times the soccer fields or football fields get mowed, to the sidewalks you walk on, to the cemeteries upkeep. And so cities are already doing a 10% budget reduction exercise, and they're already looking at, if this passes, what library closes, what parks closes, and how do they maintain the mandate that the legislature has in funding public safety and the undefined definition of core services. So yes, that cemetery owned by a city may not be mowed once a week. It may be mowed once a quarter, depending on the size of that city and the revenue that's coming in.
And if there are plots still available in that cemetery, the cost is likely to go up.
That's scary because they're pretty sky high right now. I mean, they're really it's crazy. I think somebody wanted to know what the slide deck would be made available. They wanted some written materials. Is that in? I know that you put your information in the chat. So can they find the slide deck on if they went onto your websites, or can that be mailed out so that we can send out something? I've seen thus far members of Delta Sigma Theta, Zeta Phi Beta, Alpha Phi Alpha, Alpha Kappa Alpha. I've seen the Shriners. My OAS chapter Golden Victor number 44. I have seen many members of my church, New Mount Olive Baptist Church, and FAMU Alumni Association. Seen some Masons, some other folks. So we are trying to get to make sure that these leaders from their organizations will have a way to share. And written materials always work. I think the slides that Jackson had will be really helpful as we continue to pass this along.
Yes, they're not currently on the website because I kind of finished them like an hour ago, but I can email those to Pamela and get those to you. Yes.
Okay. And I think Pamela, it's with the state conference, Florida NAACP has already taken a position.
Yes, we
Correct.
have. Yes, we have taken a position, and we are members of the Save Our Services No on 3 campaign. So we are invested in this, and we will have the information to continuously reach out to our members. But I will make sure that you have the link to Erica's hospital report. Encourage Jackson to complete his slides deck so we can get that to you. And hopefully Jeff will have some information that we can get to you as well, because you do, through the NAACP, have tentacles to all of those organizations that you just mentioned. And as you indicated, getting the information in their hands rather than requiring them to go somewhere else to get it is probably our best education tool. And Mr. Brown, we will make sure you get this information as well. I believe Erica mentioned that her report does include information on Indian Rivers and their hospital and their healthcare. And I know that in your area, covering Sebastian and Gifford and some of those devastated communities, knowing about their hospital care and their healthcare is going to be very important.
And President Brown, did you have a question? Because I know you work in the health field and you know the things that are going out there. Did you have a question or comment?
Well, a comment more so. Erica was right on target. We have Indian River Hospital District, and recently we were involved where they were going to close down the maternity ward at Cleveland Clinic, and it was a outroar. The closest was going to be Port St. Lucie or Brevard County. And so I think that's a major focus point for this county, is to focus on all aspects of healthcare. especially the hospital district and its relationship to Cleveland Clinic. So the only thing I would add was, I love the thing scam and tax shift, but I think we need to be adamant with telling our people that this is a constitutional amendment. We can't say oops and it goes away. Once we get it, it's there. So we have to be vigilant in reinforcing the fact that this is a constitutional amendment.
Were there others of the participants who wanted to ask a question? Please put your hand up. You can, we'll give you an opportunity to ask your questions. If you have an organization that you wanted to get information as well, and we'll be glad to assist with that as we move forward. We have to make sure that we work collaboratively on this, and this is something we cannot fail. I'll gladly work with anyone or connect. Will there be additional webinars regarding Amendment 3? Absolutely. There will be some, Senator Osgood is championing them locally, some in-person ones. I think the one scheduled, I believe, is on the 2nd. Check out our website as well. We'll send out on all social media so that you'll have an opportunity to participate in that, and we'll be able to get going. The time is now. We have 1.3 million. We don't know how many of those will vote. We're going to try to get as many of them, of our voters out as we can, but we've got to make sure we stand up to this before, the inevitable happens. If we don't show up, this will be certainly very, very bad for us.
President Ellison, if I could just
yeah.
say,
Go right
I'm
ahead.
certain that Jeff would agree with this. Please reach out to us if you have a group that wants a presentation. Please let us come talk to you. You can reach us through our website. Go to Pamela to get hold of either of us. SOSFL.org is ours. Jeff put theirs in their website as well. We would be more than happy to come talk to any groups, just like we did tonight.
Do you know
I
if
also wanted to add that Florida Policy Institute is doing biweekly calls on property tax issues every Thursday or every other Thursday at 12:30. So our next one will be in 2 weeks, but I did drop that link in the chat if anybody wants to register for those.
Thank you. Here's a good question too. Was the ballot language approved legally? I thought the judge rejected that. Pamela, can you speak to that as well?
Yes, there were challenges to the language. It was basically focused on the title of it, which was more campaign sloganeering than it was legal language to explain the impact, the real impact of the language. Our system requires that if the language is deemed to be inappropriate, the Attorney General gets to rewrite it. So the language has been rewritten. It does not change the impact of what the actual amendment does. So yes, it had some tinkering done, but it did not undo any of the devastating impact that you've heard about this evening.
Hmm. Okay. When you said you didn't have good news, Pamela, you really weren't kidding. You really weren't kidding there. And so somebody asked who in Broward that can come to local churches. Do we have information in Haitian Creole to pass on?
We are working on some stuff in Haitian Creole. So as soon as that's available, we can, that will be available on our website, and then I can make sure that through being part of the coalition, Pamela will have access to it to get it out to you all. We are working on that. As far as who in Broward County,
I know Senator Osgood, Representative Campbell, I believe Representative Dunkley, and I believe Senator Barbara Sharif are also.
Senator Sharif has a different opinion on this bill. It's on this amendment, to my understanding.
Okay,
But also
that.
Representative.
I remember the vote. Yeah, you're right. I remember. You're absolutely right. Scratch that.
Representatives Woodson and Bartleman are also very good on this, and Woodson being part of the Haitian community as well. And then out of Palm Beach County, a little bit further away, but Rep. Rob Long has been excellent on this. He has a background in local government too, so he can speak as someone who's worked in local government. Those are all great folks. And if you're not furiously writing down every name I'm saying, like, please just reach out and we can help find somebody for you.
So let me back up. So absolutely, we won't be, I remember the vote from Senator Sharif. She is not we're not of the same opinion. So I'm going to go back again and say Senator Osgood, Representative Campbell, and Dunkley, certainly. And I believe there are a series of webinars that are scheduled. The next one I believe on deck is for next week, and we'll send out the flyer. It is at Mount Olive, but I think last week was Piney Grove, and so there are folk that you could certainly, any of those for sure, that can give you the information and that we're all on the same page. It says Red Schoolhouse and Doers Homeowners Association in attendance. I thank you for that. I think you alluded to something about some of the 501c3s really getting caught in the mix, and I believe that is happening to some of the daycares and that sort of thing. So, and she says if you have any PDF files that can be shared, please email me a copy, and I can send one. I'm also a Haitian Creole translator. I would love to help. And that's amazing. Okay, so we can get you, Pamela, if you don't mind, I'll connect you so you can work out the details because that would be amazing to help that out as well. So we certainly appreciate that. Okay. Um, Anything to close? President Brown, you're muted. You're
Just
muted.
want to once again say thank you to Madam President and Pamela for an awesome presentation. Monet, Jeff, and Jason, awesome. You rock stars, and we need to continue this and make sure that we get it to our people, that it's mandatory that we vote and defeat this Amendment 3.
And I think we'll, through Pamela, we will work to get the word out to our units. Pamela, that the position, the recommendation and the position that the state conference has come up with and why. And so even though there may be others who are sharing different information, even some that look like me, they're not in the same tax bracket, so they won't feel the same pain that we are. If that is, I think that will finish up and we will close out. Minister Edwards, if you will close us out, please. If you are not a member of the NAACP, please make sure that you join us. We are certainly, when there's room for all of us, the only thing that's missing from the struggle is you. So we invite you to join wherever you are. Connect with your local NAACP. And roll your sleeves up. There's something all of us can do. So we need to make sure that we do that. And Minister Edwards, if you will close us out.
Madam President and all assembled, let us go to the Lord in prayer. Gracious Father, we're grateful for what our eyes have seen and our ears have heard. Now, God, you have answered our prayer for increased understanding. We pray, Father, that you would encourage, strengthen those who will go forward with this message that has been presented to us tonight. And God, may we remain strong and vigilant in the fight for justice. We thank you, we bless you, and we ask you to bless your people as we go in peace. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pamela. Thank you, panelists. Thank you, everyone. Yes, there will be more information. Yes, we'll send out emails as we get it, and we'll share as much information as we can. And you are more than welcome to reach out to those entities. They don't belong to us, but we want everybody to get the information. So I'm sure whatever they can do to assist all of us, they will. And thank you all for joining us.